I have a problem. Tears of the Kingdom just came out. It looks like a near perfect game, and I'd love to do a video in it, but this is what it would look like if I did. So, now what? I'll tell you what, me wearing elf ears. I'm gonna play a pack that turns Minecraft into Legend of Zelda and more. This is Dawncraft. This amazing pack has all sorts of new combat, unique bosses, and a crazy amount of cool stuff. I'm gonna take on all of the eye holders and so much more. And I'm doing it in hardcore. So one wrong move and it's all over. So grab some popcorn, pull yourself away from the Switch for just a few minutes, and let's get started. And we're getting started with the Zelda parallels right away. This is fun. Hello, you. You're finally awake. Welcome to our world. Having spoken with the leaf person and now given my quest to kill God, I went and started punching a tree, and this behaved just a little bit differently to what you expect in vanilla Minecraft. There is no way that stick is holding up that tree, but if you break it, the whole tree comes down. That's nice. I marked my location on the atlas that was in my hand, grabbed a little bit of cobblestone with a wooden pickaxe, upgrading to stone tools almost immediately, and just checking out the world. Oh, look at me. I look very uncomfortable in this position. With whatever the heck my spine was just doing there behind me, I ran forward, seeing a village of calcite buildings scaling its way up a cliff. Here are the villagers, and you have to be careful. They can't see you take anything from their chests, or else they'll hate you. You know, stealing. Stealing is wrong. And if they don't hate you, they'll give you quests, like collecting feathers, or charging emeralds so you can learn how to use some of the blocks that they use for their jobs. I turned in my absolute first quest, immediately being asked to grab some melon seeds, but the sun was setting and this pack is difficult, so I went to bed immediately. The next day, I started taking on a few more odds and ends around the village, being asked to find a bale of straw, and then finding a spawner right here, breaking it, and then realizing what was inside. Oh, there's gold, TNT, randomly rolled green and blue armor. I'll explain more about that later, but what was on top was the most impressive thing. That's a lodestone? Hold up, that's a lodestone? Oh, I'm going back for this one. I spent a little bit of time continuing to run around and explore the mountain, being attacked by a dingo and quickly giving them the axe, and then trying to figure out if this person right here was going to attack me. Instead, they wanted 2 stakes, and I didn't know what that would do, but okay, I'll put it in the quest log. It's day 3 and my inventory already looks like an absolute disaster area, but there is so much loot to manage in this world. I ran down the other side of the mountain this morning, finding Baroque the Sun Chief just chilling here by the water. I'll come back and deal with that later. I'm not quite ready for that just yet. I swam along the river, coming up to a patch of cows and thoroughly murdering many of them, getting the leather I would need, and then grabbing a block of wool from the village over here, using it to craft a backpack. This would allow me to store a whole bunch of items, and I immediately upgraded it to iron so that, you know, I'd get some decent space out of it. I kept checking on the village, but nobody wanted to talk. I was wondering why until I saw a Ravager come to chew my face off. Oh no. That is very bad. Oh. Okay. That was almost devastating. Yeah. This is the kind of world where Ravagers just casually live in villages, you know. The next morning, I was trying to take on zombies with the newer combat, but resorted to just being on top of a pole and bonking them on the head with my axe. Normal attacks do half damage if you don't commit to the actual fighting style, but I'm not 100% sure how that works yet, so we'll get there in a little bit. I cooked up a few steaks before being jumped by a mountain lion, going down to 1 heart. 1 heart! This thing is brutal, and I just ran to let it go. But I wanted to see what other things this world had to offer, so I took the 2 steak and gave it to my friend here, and they became a minion. Companion added. Oh, do they work for me now? Oh, I have a minion. I have a minion. Call me Gru, because I'm going to abuse this mechanic so much throughout this entire playthrough. I crafted up some upgraded tools before jumping and swimming across the river, dodging crocodiles who just happened to be chilling behind me. And as we were just fighting a few random mobs on the ground, this happened. Oh no, they died! Oh. Well, I'm so sorry, Sven. RIP Sven in the comments. I'm not gonna lie, I only knew Sven for like 5 minutes tops, and I'm ready to kill everything on this server in revenge. And I believe I was so traumatized by this that I don't even remember if I hired another person for the whole 100 days. Day 5, and I finally made my way towards the village that the map had encouraged me to go to. But the one structure that I need, the Guildmaster's Hall, I can't find anywhere around here. They had a shrine and a waystone, both of which would come in very handy, and a bunch of things in the chest that I totally wasn't supposed to, but totally did steal. I spent the whole day talking to all of the villagers, collecting all of the quests that I was going to be given in this town, just trying to figure out which one was the one that progressed the main storyline, and it turns out it was none of them. So the next morning, when I got out of the house, I saw a bunch more buildings for an adjacent but not exactly connected city. I'm thinking maybe it's those? The boots that I had found the previous day in the village increased my step height, allowing me to just run up the side of a mountain, which is wonderful, I'm not gonna lie. But I was soon able to find my way to the Guildmaster, and they started me on my journey. My first quest was to kill 10 pillagers, and I was given a map with a big red X to go do my murders in. But I need more supplies, so I rounded out day 6 by mining iron and coal to finish out the day. Day 7, I started by turning in a few of my sweet berries to one of the farmers, being asked to bring 2 beetroots. I checked all of the farms in the village, grabbing the hay bales, but not finding any beetroots, just every other crop. Do they not grow in acacia villages? But I continued along through the forest, following the stone path that wound its way through the trees, finding England, just casually chilling in the middle of my Minecraft world. They had a waystone here too, which would come in handy, and another guildmaster, which kept in sync with the main ones. They're apparently using Skype or something to keep in touch. Skype is old enough now that I can make a joke about that being in Fantasyland, right? I'm not dating myself there. No, this is fine. It's the children who are wrong. But I boarded a bed going into day 8, looking just over the ridge and seeing another building with a Ravager parked out front. Do not go, death is there. And it turns out death is in many places, because as I continued to run in the exact opposite direction of the Ravager, I came across an ogre who was just chilling inside a little stone circle, and these witch doctor looking dudes who are hanging out here, and I don't think I want to mess with them. But on the other side of the woods was not a village, but a city. Massive structures all over, lighthouses, multi-story buildings, and a ton of quests. The only problem is it's built over a ravine very precariously. Not the best idea. Decent place to sleep. Day 9, I activated the waystone for Creomerak. I'm gonna be completely honest, these towns all sound like something that my buddy Forge Labs names. You know how he names basically anything. It's throwing just a bunch of vowels and then picking one consonant and repeating it over and over. And yeah, this kind of tracks. I spoke with a villager from up, being told a story of a haunted area that they had seen a ghost while out mining, and that's what scared them into their new profession. They gave me a map heading off in that direction, but you're gonna see that these maps actually take me thousands of blocks away, so I'm very glad I didn't follow this immediately. What I did find outside was a little troll camp and a building that turned out being a lighthouse. Climbing the ladder there's a little bit of supplies here and there, but I activated it, synchronizing myself to the area and expanding my mini-map. Except not really, that totally isn't how this works. What I did see nearby was the city of Rayradark, which honestly was my main village that I was operating out of for these 100 days. It's partially flooded with water in some of the homes, and really this is just ye olde plumbing not really doing too well, which I fixed, and into day 10 was finding some skeletons and zombies hiding out in some of the larger structures. I rewarded myself for my valiant acts with the bottles of experience and armor that I found inside the chests, swimming across the river to just see what was around. I continued out along the rolling hills, finding a little tiny house in the outskirts of town. I slept in the bed there, just because nights are really freaking me out right now, going into day 11, where I looted the chests that were inside, and then saw a massive castle off in the distance. Now, I wasn't watching my map at the time, but it turns out this is where it had sent me. This is a pillager castle. I used this space to complete my pillager killing quests, finding a few beetroots inside as well, which is honestly pretty wonderful. I was at 8 of 10 right as I slept in the field outside. The next morning, I killed a creeper that was chasing me, the final pillager I needed to complete the quest, and what I can only assume is a werewolf or some kind of dingo man. I took the banner, slapping it onto my shield, and then found a few other minions that I could potentially hire, but they all required foods that I didn't have on hand at the moment. And it seems like that's pretty consistent. You feed them, and then they fight to the death for you. You know, as you do. I ran back towards Rayri, finding a castle right there with a bunch of quests inside. I know there's stuff in those barrels, but it's not safe to loot. And talking with all of the villagers. Killing the pillagers unlocked the combat roll ability for me, as well as moved me to the next step, where I had to hunt down and eliminate the Goblin King. Now, it took a few seconds to figure out exactly how to trigger it that I could roll, but this is awesome. Honestly, that roll is what makes the enhanced combat mechanics of this pack actually work, so it makes sense how I was struggling so much until right now. But I threw down a bed going into lucky day 13, where I figured out that these villagers cannot pathfind with the leaf blocks that you can actually walk through. Helping them, though, had me walking around the house, which saw me look underground, and it turns out Rayri was also poised precariously over a massive ravine, except this one had a zombie crypt inside. And if you've watched any of my recent videos, especially the latest scenario, you know the zombie crypts have a ton of loot inside. And considering the loot that comes in this pack, I definitely want to check this place out. There's a few villagers trapped down here as well, and one who, once I released, would start shooting the zombies. The only problem is they stood in melee range, so they didn't last super long. But I'm using the same strategies you've seen me use in other videos, using water to hold down areas, torches, and breaking spawners to really secure spots, and realizing that I'm somewhat out of my depth with the combat system and the gear that goes on these mobs, so I'm gonna have to come back down here and try this again when I have a little bit more food and some better armor on board. The next day, one of the villagers wanted an iron axe, which I gleefully turned in. They offered 4 emeralds, and then none appeared in my inventory. I got totally scammed. I'd kill them, but that would be bad for my reputation. So with some extra bread and the frustration to fuel me, I went back down the waterfall into the zombie crypt, taking down a few different mobs here. There was a diamond sword here which did cold damage on top of its normal damage, but that is a massive upgrade over the little moderately sharp stick of iron that I was waving around to this point. And figuring out how to use the roll effectively in combat, effectively turning this game into Dark Souls. But the best offense does not equate to a good defense, and I'm made out of tissue paper and dreams at this point. I have to be very careful on the hits I take. But I kept looting into day 15, and that persistence would be rewarded immensely. Oh my goodness, I didn't even realize that's a god apple. Oh, that is huge. My inventory is a mess. But with 2 god apples in my inventory, I was feeling pretty great. That is until I turned the corner and saw a mythic level zombie that was adaptive, infested, and wounding. This thing could obliterate me with a thought. So I ran up to the surface and out of its aggro. Right next to the village though, I saw a little bit of a ruined castle, and my first thought was, oh, this could potentially be a decent place to live. I looted all the chests, grabbing everything, finding a fletching table, and once the rain had cleared, a vindicator who tried to stab me. I just shot them in the face. I continued exploring and looting any of the villages whenever the watchful eyes were not upon me, when I had a villager just decide at the last second not to talk to me. Honestly, I'm a little bit offended. But as these somewhat freaky mobs were starting to spawn late into the night, that's when we rolled over to day 16. As I headed east, out of the village and continuing over the rolling green hills, finding a house that was abandoned. There were mobs inside, all sorts of different mess from the create mod, holes in the walls, and a pillager boss outside who was shooting poison arrows at me. Their nickname was the Sharpshooter, so I had to play this carefully, peeking around corners, running in for a couple stabs, and then rolling back out before another crossbow bolt could be loosed. Playing around with both the first and the third person forms of combat, I'm starting to get my handle on this pack as I made him bleed, picking up 2 heavily enchanted crossbows that I would carry through this entire journey by my side. But this house is looking like it needs a little bit of TLC. There's cobwebs everywhere, holes in the walls, and just junk as far as the eye can see. So I took a quick nap going into day 17, where we're in spring cleaning mode. I demoed all of the different smashed areas of the floor, checking all of the different barrels and the sacks, which these sacks are amazing. They're like mini shulkers. So good. I collected and consolidated all of the different create things into one chest, all of my blocks into another, and read a journal, day 102. Taking a day trip to the ocean and seeing a fin in the distant ocean, want to check it out, and talking about sharks. Now, I had just received a quest about sharks a little while ago that was asking for a shark tooth. Thankfully, there was just one in this house, and I didn't have to go to the ocean to get it. But I spent all of day 17 setting up a lodestone, putting a compass there, and you know what they say, once your compass points home, that's where the heart is? Is that actually what anybody? I don't think that's what actually anybody says. But the next day, it was time to focus on the outside as much as I had focused on the inside, and I immediately got into a fight with an enderman, and it almost went very badly. Once that was handled though, the hits didn't stop coming. A pillager patrol came by, being led by a 2-star pillager captain who could set me on fire. This was rough, I'm not gonna lie. But killing them nailed me a great enchanted book and the satisfaction that this house now properly belonged to me because now I had defended it. I continued exploring around, fighting some tiny little goblins and grabbing everything that came out of their chests once they fell asleep from my arrows. I drank some milk from a nearby cow to get rid of the angry thoughts from the nearby pillagers, sleeping in the village, and then turning in a few of the quests that I had been requested to do. From there, I just kept looking around on my map, just trying to figure out what should be my next steps. I need to hunt down a Goblin King, but I don't know what that is. I know roughly on a map where I need to go, but I'm just popping from village to village and POI to POI, grabbing a waystone from one of the villages that I'm passing by and pretty sure I won't return to, and just heading north. I found a boat, which as soon as I walked up to it, it called me a pirate, and yar, I was gonna jump on this thing and attack. But oh boy, was I not ready for the countermeasures. What the heck? Are they shooting fireworks? Are you kidding me? The Vindicator is actually the threat, because that axe can mess me up. I took advantage of the fact that Vindicators don't swim before jumping up onto the deck, fighting all of the firework blasting illagers right here. My shield basically didn't do anything, so my only hope was to just kill them as quickly as possible. I was rewarded with some decently rolled green pants, a few diamonds, a few emeralds, and an enchanted iron chestplate. Honestly, not bad. As I started running back towards the village of Rayri, I saw one of the purple trees that one of the villagers was requesting a couple logs in for their next quest. Grabbing that, and then heading back to the village, fighting yet another werewolf type character, and then leveling up my fishing from one of the villagers here. Day 21, and Frostwalker is amazing for being able to traverse long distances very quickly. The fact that this also has a step boost, that's nice. I saw a lighthouse in the distance and blocks floating in the sky above me as I continued moving from place to place completing quests. I turned in the purple logs and I was given my first trader's contract, which allowed me to trade with this specific forester villager and no others. So now you know why I've been doing all of those quests. The villager trades that I usually rely on, they're gatekept behind having a good reputation. It's almost like you need to be nice to people for them to be nice back. But I went home, throwing down a waystone inside the house, and I'm very glad it was inside because whatever the hell this thing is was outside, and I didn't want to deal with that, so I went to sleep. Day 22, and it's the first of many, and I do mean many, inventory management montages. And yeah, you're gonna see a lot of these. There's a lot of stuff to manage in Dawncraft. The gist of it is I took all of those gems and just threw them in a chest in the corner that I'll deal with eventually. I'm not ready for that. What I am ready for though is better food. The more vanilla dishes, the things that you learn to count on, they don't really do bupkis in this pack, and instead you need to do things like mince patties and make burgers and pastas and pies to get an actual decent amount of food from it. So I made bacon. Everyone loves bacon. So the next day when a wandering trader popped by and was offering me pumpkin seeds, yeah, it's one of the few times where I'll actually purchase those things. I started setting up some very initial crops, throwing down all the wheat, sage, onions, and other items that I had collected, and grabbing a few different sheep from some leads that I found getting a few pigs in a pen directly out front. As it turned to night and I was just trying to do a little bit of farming, I was attacked by whatever the heck this thing was. I wasn't fully able to place it and saw an outlined evoker or vindicator off in the distance. No, that's a bad idea. I threw down a few torches and then just started clearing the area, hoping that they wouldn't notice me, going into day 24, where I realized the roof actually needed a little bit of work to make it fully waterproof, as well as a few odds and ends of holes in the house. As I was out front collecting materials, I was attacked, frozen in place by what I would find out later was a vampire, which was sucking my blood. Thankfully though, I was able to take care of that and lead a few sheeps on leads into a second pen that I have even more food options soon. I'm throwing down torches on top of fence posts just because I feel like being fancy and sleeping on the second floor because logic and reason. The next day, I really need to find the Goblin King. We're a quarter of the way through this entire playthrough, and I've been farming. This is basically how I play any RPG anyway, so this honestly really tracks. Main quest line? Who cares about a main quest line? I headed north, finding several different fun villages. But on the second village north, there was the bar. The Goblin King existed somewhere in this town. The town of Rice-Lamarmed. Now, as I was being chased around by the goblins, I found out that the iron golems just absolutely whacked them, and the sound effects triggered spontaneous laughter. NANI? I haven't heard a golem punch anything yet, and that sound effect is hilarious. So I thought, why don't we take advantage of that? So I opened a 3x3 hole in the side of the castle, and I leaded in a few different golems to get them to just bonk everything for me. Now, there was another one of those bosses that could set things on fire, but it was focused on the golem. I'm just kiting mobs backwards as I'm shooting them, and being very careful to not hit the golems so they won't come and one-shot me. Near the end of the night, I pulled a golem up onto the roof to take on the Goblin King, and it was glorious. The golem just wrecked the Goblin King. That worked beautifully. My friend, you've done so well. I immediately desecrated the throne of the goblins, going into the next morning where I cleaned up a few of the stragglers, finding some different emerald blocks and treasures behind some walls, throwing the crown on for good measure. Oh my goodness, look at me. I look amazing. Hijinks aside, I returned back to my home village, speaking with any villagers that had quest indicators and the guildmaster, who told me that finally I'm ready to take on the corrupted ogre and collect my first eye. But when the wandering trader rolled up, I realized this economy is in shambles. Oh, yes, okay. You could buy a god apple for 15 emeralds. We're buying all of those that we can. You can buy a wither skeleton skull. With quite a bit in my pocket, I warped back towards home, organizing all of the loot that I had collected, throwing the crown on the wall, the blocks into the chest, and the gems into the most organized gem chest that you will see in the entire 100 days. Day 27, I made a cooking pot, which would prove absolutely vital and essential to my success in this mod pack. Cooking and eating different and varied foods is what's required to actually get the full value out of them. So you can't just load up on golden carrots and call it a day. You have to mix it up. And the first recipe I saw was a burger. Now there was a villager who also wanted this for a quest line, but you know, I'm absolutely gonna just go try to get a burger. The problem I have right now though is I don't have cabbage, but it did say that you could find cabbage in beach biomes just right next to the ocean, even though I don't think I've ever seen cabbage growing there in real life. There were a few just short of Rayri, and the castle right there had all the villagers consolidated in the upper floors, so I was able to loot the chests on the bottom and grab anything that wasn't nailed down. The next day, once I released all the villagers from the inside, they came out to a somewhat empty courtyard, and for some reason didn't want to talk to me or trade with me, and I was going to do something about it. Nope, I'm gonna be good. I'm the hero of the village. I warped home and planted all of the cabbage that I had collected, and I don't have the ingredients for a burger, but I was able to make a chicken sandwich, which is my first proper meal since starting in this world. But one sandwich will not do, so I bone meal cabbage for the remainder of the day, feeling like the soldier from Team Fortress 2, making a bunch of bacon sandwiches as well. This honestly is comfort food for me. Day 29, I'm using the Waystone network in all of the villages to attempt to triangulate my position with the corrupted ogre, which holds the first eye. I'm just warping from town to town to see if my placement on the map changes at all, so I know how close or how far I need to go. I found a lighthouse that had just a couple diamonds sitting in item frames, and a bit of a parkour challenge that I completely did totally legitimately, and I want to hear no complaints about in the comments. I also jumped on a horse, binding it as my personal horse, riding in some basic iron armor, and this thing is slow as heck, but it's better than walking because I don't need to worry about the saturation losses. So since food is so hard to come by, I'll go with it. The horse's name? Oh, you're asking about the horse's name? It's expendable. Come on, y'all, you should know me well enough. I am not good at keeping animals alive. I ran across the shrubland finding another castle. This one with a bunch of different armor and beds here, which I took a quick nap and spent day 30 looting everything that I could find. I was able to get quite a bit from here, a bunch of nice, decent roll blue armor, but the gold horse armor was something that I equipped right away. I'm going to be riding in style. Nearby, I saw a massive tower. We're talking 100+ blocks tall. I dug into the side, was shot with a poison arrow, and immediately said, no, I'm not doing this today. What I did find nearby was my first shrine. Now, these are areas where you can't build or anything else along those lines, and you have to complete either a parkour or a logical puzzle, and you will get spirit orbs, which you can use to upgrade your stamina wheel or hearts. And if this sounds like Zelda, yes, it exactly is. This very first one was a create powered parkour course, and I'm not sure if they designed or intended for me to jump on the fences in the center of the map, but I absolutely did, unlocking the shrine and the 2 spirit orbs that I collected from within. But from there, I continued along, finding another spawner, this one underneath a piece of crying obsidian. Absolutely nothing to worry about there. And I didn't realize it at first, but inside the chest were some spawn eggs. I know, is this normal? I'm not sure if this is normal, but being in the field in Dawncraft is a risky endeavor. Look, I might be 30 days into this. I am not taking on literal death over in the corner. That feels like a bad idea. There's a village over there. Let's go to the light. The light is safe. Oh no, the light is not safe. The light is not safe. And the next morning? Yeah, it didn't get any better. Oh, that's a dragon. It's time to leave. This is not a good place to be at all. We're going now. So I'm giving that dragon a wide berth, but the corrupted ogre I need to fight is inside this dirt dome right here, so I need to be careful. It did take a fire strafing run near to me before flying off, and I thought this was my opportunity. I dug a hole in the wall and then just started loosing arrows through. Now, this might feel a little bit cheesy, but I also feel like I am built out of tissue paper, so I do not want that ogre bonking me on the head, and you will see that ogres remain lethal all the way through your playthrough. But I eventually bowed down the ogre enough and collected my very first eye. I feel like I might have been overscared by the dragon and not the ogre, but it works. From there, though, I wasn't satisfied. This little pillager castle right here, yeah, this would potentially be a good find. So I spent a little bit of time looting all of the different things in here, getting down to half a heart from an axe crit to the back of my skull, which would be concerning if I wasn't an absolute pro. Running over to a nearby village and heading upstairs to something that is totally not a cult, before grabbing some iron golems and then repeating what I had done to the Goblin King to whatever pillagers lived inside this castle, and this was honestly quite funny. I spoke with one of the cartographers who, unprovoked, upgraded my sailing to level 2. I have no idea what that genuinely means, before heading back over towards the pillager castle, with it now empty, being able to go up to the upper floors and loot all of the different armor that's around here. There was one mob which spawned all the way up on the roof, who I had to kite down to be able to fight them in a little bit more open space. Vomac the Toxic, and with a name like that, I don't want to be anywhere close to that stink. But with Vomok cleared and my pockets very full, I slept in the village one more time before going through and fully looting the space, checking out all of the different books, picking up an enchanting table, which feels like it is a massive find to be able to just have one of those laying around, before once again dealing with a smoke-filled well in the middle of town. I threw an entire ingot's worth of golden nuggets and nothing happened. I sacrificed a few other things to the hole and received no boons in return. Did I just make a warlock pack that I wasn't intending to? I worked back towards home very quickly, banked all of my gains, and started building an enchanting setup on the second floor, thinking that this can enchant my armor and it will keep me a little bit more protected. And nope, you can't use the enchanting table until you're rank 2 in that skill. Oh, I have more bosses to kill first. The next morning, I warped back to town and it was time to tell the guildmaster of my accomplishments. Just current whereabouts. Nice! Your stage should be quite weak in Celestial. Remember, you can bring Ender Pearls. He has a nasty attack that can only be escaped via teleportation. Okay, I unlocked the Smoker and Blast Furnace. I investigated all of the new recipes that I had unlocked, checking in with the different statues and looking at my map, trying to figure out where I should go to next. From there, I warped to the Waystone and picked up a few new quests that the villagers were willing to give me. I think this was me completing the main storyline here. I also investigated what it would need to get into some of the more expensive dishes, and that would require grindstoning wheat to be able to make flour. Only problem is, I don't have permission to use create just yet. So we're gonna keep it simple. Day 35, I was feeding all of the different animals and then planting all of the crops that I have, breaking whatever was at fully matured to turn into more dishes that I could actually craft inside. I lured and leaded several cows back towards the base, making a brand new pen, getting them all stuck inside and killing the stragglers, turning them into hamburgers. The circle of life, really. And whatever didn't turn into burgers turned into some loaded baked potatoes. This mod pack makes me hungry. Day 36, I turned the burger into the villager who had been requesting it, getting nothing more than a thank you in return, so much so that I reloaded the game to make sure that a reward wasn't bugged. From there, I warped over to another town, unlocking and unblocking all of the villagers from the places that they had been stuck in, and taking on yet another parkour challenge, this one being rendered a lot easier by grass being present in halfway up the tower. Really, the mission was go kill this old ancient knight, so it's time to get ready for that. And by get ready for that, I mean get distracted by seeing a dungeon structure immediately nearby to my base. This thing was really close. I started heading down the spiral staircase, making my way all the way through and fighting several different mobs. Now there's a lot of skeletons that are spawning from spawners and ones that they're dropping off a poison cloud. I'm just trying to break the spawner from a distance, being very careful and very conscious of the fact that poison makes me very vulnerable. I picked up an iron pick, finally getting advancement, having gone straight from stone to diamond previously, and found and killed a witch in one of the caves, dropping a few enchanted books and spawning the most loaded goblin trader. Wait, I have this. I can do that. That is a thing that I can do. How do I make sure that you don't despawn? Will you follow me? Can I lead you? I can. Okay, I know I was gonna run the dungeon. This is more important. Look, I don't care if it looks silly, me leading a goblin around a spiral staircase on a lead. Fortune 4? Yes, I'm gonna go and get that. And believe me, you would too. And if you say you wouldn't, you are lying. Fortune 4! Oh my god, that's amazing. We can trade apples for emeralds while we're at it. Here you go, buddy. Here, take an apple. Day 38 with the most epic of pickaxes now in my inventory and another that reaches further, which is perfect for destroying spawners. It's time to cue the combat montage. I spent a full day and a half down here, fully filling my inventory, my backpack, and completing the Sentinel advancement, which is my 100th individual chest looted. It gave me a statue that I was able to display in the house, but realistically that felt like a really good point to head back up and just empty my pockets. I had so much stuff to collect, and I was reminded that I could press a button to summon a horse. So I summoned Expendable and upgraded them to a proper diamond set of armor. My horse is going to live in style, however briefly. And if you're wondering why I made all these comments about the horse dying, this is why. Yep, it killed itself by sitting in a chair. With that happening at home, I realized maybe I should go out and do some exploring, fill out the corners of my map, and see what was in my general area. So I went off in another random direction that I hadn't explored in yet, finding my way to an abandoned nether portal. I grabbed the gold blocks from up top, a few things from the chests, and was given this pretty big warning. If I were to go to the nether now, it would activate expert mode, which would level up all of the enemies, give them better gear, make them hurt me even further. And I'm already basically made out of tissue paper, so no thank you. I'll deal with this later. What I did find right after that, though, was something that I'm pretty sure I could tackle now. Is a mostly underwater area, but inside the barrels were absolutely bonkers potions. We're talking multiple high-level effects all at the same time. Just look at this thing. Haste, strength, jump boost, regeneration resistance, and fire resistance all in one go. That is basically a power star from Mario. However, I didn't feel like I was in a good place to do any fighting, so the second I saw mobs, I just noped right out of there immediately, ran over to a local village, took a quick nap there, and on day 41, we're continuing with our exploration. I found an ogre off in the distance. Running from that, I found what I can tell an upgraded version of a witch's hut. And inside these chests were things like nether wart, potion ingredients, components, and things that I could really use, but no witches. Now, it turns out they're actually under the bottom floor inside a bunch of spawners, but this one, the way it generated, boxed them all in, which is wonderful news for me. I kept running along, just trying to get towards that X on the map to take on the next boss, finding a bandit town. There's really no other way to explain it. And then two massive towers punching straight up into the sky. I was attacked by this green glowing skeleton, and once I was able to take them down, I unlocked an advancement and a decently rolled piece of armor, which made me even faster. So I used that to my advantage to head over towards those towers, finding out it's a casino. Oh, I am absolutely gonna have some fun with this. I grabbed some wool from one of the canopies and then figured out that I could make a sleeping bag, which would allow me to sleep without resetting my spawn. It doesn't really make a difference, but it auto picks up, so a little bit faster. Now, as much as I'd love to hit up the casino, I still have a boss to kill. So I jumped around with the kangaroos and looting anything that I can find. There was a sunken ship here with a bunch of iron, lapis, emeralds, and a few gemstones, as well as another one of those freestanding spawners. This one didn't have a lodestone on top, but there was some pretty good stuff in the chest underneath it. That was next to another one of the white concrete UK style villages, but there was no waystone here, so it doesn't really serve as a waypoint. What did serve as a bit of a danger marker though, oh, there's a dragon. Oh, that is not good. Oh, I have to go this way. Lord of Sorcery Skeleton Overlord. Yep, it looks like now I knew where the skeleton overlord actually was. So I threw a marker on the map and was just trying to find a waystone that would be a little bit closer. The area underneath the giant floating island is just pitch black, so it's spawning nothing but constant mobs, and I'm fighting a few of these spawners as well, just getting some decent loot from all of the chests that I could find. That boss bar at the top though is pretty intimidating, but there was a nearby savannah village with another different kind of tower just behind it, so I took a quick nap there, locked in the waystone so I finally knew where I needed to go, and headed back over towards the tower. I didn't have any blocks to be able to bridge up, so I went to go get some wood and then saw this structure, and it's another challenge dungeon. I spent a little bit of time clearing out all of the mobs that were hanging out directly in front of it, just trying to make it so that I could do this parkour without worrying too much about fighting. But this was parkour, and I struggle at parkour, especially ones that I can't quite cheat at. So I was able to get a few of the levers done before eventually just saying, nope, I'm gonna cheat and throwing a pearl directly onto the top center structure, realizing from there that I just needed to throw another, unlocking this shrine and another 3 spirit orbs. Hey, this is just like those people who use bombs and shields to surf and skip over a wall in Breath of the Wild. Day 44, you can't see it because it's directly on top of... Day 44, you can't see it because it's directly underneath. Day 44, you can't see it because it's directly underneath the Day 44, you can't see it because it's directly underneath the day counter, but we are still continuing off, and I finally found a marker on the map. Now, this map specifically was the one that was leading to the haunted place that was given to me all the way back in, I think, the first few days of this world, and it was one of these side quests that I thought would be this big, amazing fight. I did quickly use the waystone to pop my way over back towards home to repair a little bit of my gear and to turn in those spirit orbs to up the size of my stamina wheel. It makes a difference, even if it might feel like a marginal one right now. But with that, I warped back over towards that ruined area and spoke with the denizen inside. They offered me a choice, and I tried to make the right one. Okay, I'll take the non-violent route. Thank you, adventure. Feel better already. Wait, something's not right. Goodbye for you, it seems. No. I tried too good. Once the person here transformed into the giant werewolf with frenzy attacks, I tried to use the door to pin them inside to be able to get combat without having to worry about being absolutely nommed on. It did go into the night, which meant things like barbarians and mushroom people and all of the other mobs of this pack started attacking me. But thankfully the wolf was stuck mostly inside. After I ran out of arrows, I threw my trident through the door. It doesn't have loyalty, so I'll pick it up in a little bit. But it got loose and things got tense. With a little bit of luck, some definitely placed combat rolls and a nice few crits from Bone Splitter, though, I was able to tame the beast. Yes! Woo! Oh, that was almost really bad. Okay. I quickly napped, so it turned towards day, and on day 45, I was searching for the trident that I had thrown, thinking that it should just be stuck in the ground here somewhere, and it was gone. Just completely vanished. I wasn't sure what had happened, where it had gone, but that did not feel like a worthwhile trade. If anything, that side quest was relatively underwhelming. So I walked back over towards the Savannah area, the one by the other tower and a little bit closer to the skeleton overlord, to take on the underwater dungeon here, thinking at least there's probably going to be some loot. And yeah, unarmed zombies of any kind with the armor that I have and the damage output that I can put through, they are not as much of a threat. The thing with this pack is you need to know when to draw a line and you need to know your limits. And when I went into one of the last rooms, seeing skeletons and witches who were ready to yeet harming potions at me, yeah, that's when you call it and you leave. Day 46, I'm looking at the second of my 2 maps, which will link me towards my next eye holder and champion that I have to take out, so it's time to sail off in yet another direction. I came across a much smaller boat than a random villager boat that I've come across in previous 100 Days adventures, grabbing a little bit out of the chest, but basically leaving them be. And as I was continuing towards the map, I eventually came towards a giant amphitheater, with the world telling me it's showtime. And this is going to be an interesting fight. It's a bunch of pillagers led by the trickster, who I can really only describe of if David Blaine happened to have a giant's nose and wanted to kill you with a bunch of friends who are very passionate about crossbows. The gimmick for this fight is that they teleport around and summon killer bunnies. No, not that killer bunny, much less lethal ones, thankfully. But after a few cycles of this BAP, find the disappeared, kill the rabbit, and repeat, I was able to take them down and unlock Conjurer advancement and an unexpected eye. Oh no, my helmet broke. Anyway, let's go. Oh wait. It's a sign. I mean, that might not be smart long term. Oh! I needed that for one of the eyes. That's huge. I didn't even realize. Okay, let's sleep in here quick. Day 47. I finished exploring the stage, just making sure that there was no other treasures or loot sitting around, and looking very dapper. I continued on along to my next map. Eventually, I saw the Knight Robert bar appear at the top of the screen, and it's great that Robert got out of prison, less great that he's actually trying to kill me for it. As I was heading towards the actual X on the map, I did step into the Tinkerer's Dungeon, and this was interesting. There's a ton of different create things, another toolbox, some different rolled items in here, a bunch of sacks which would prove infinitely useful as I learned to use them. But I figured maybe substance over style, so I upgraded to a diamond helmet before going down a ladder, finding a bunch of gears and traps. And in those traps, arrows that I desperately needed. So this was kind of perfect. With all of that in my pocket, I made a mental note that I would go and visit the remainder of the dungeon later, but slept here, and it's time to take on Knight Robert. I bridged over from the top of the house, making my way into the Colosseum, and this fight, well, this was more of the kind of thing where, you know how you hate ranged enemies in most RPGs? I became that ranged enemy because when you see somebody 3 times your height with a giant sword screaming, Sephiroth, you don't go there. That's a bad idea. That being said, though, yeah, I gotta take this knight out with an actual sword swing. I can't just entirely pepper them with an unenchanted bow. Yes! Oh, that feels so good. What was that? The Jungle Eye, or the Rogue Eye. Interesting. This is a cool little dungeon. With that complete, I jumped my way off of the Colosseum area, making my way down the river in a boat, finding what I can only describe as a fisherman's lodge, because that's what it said at the top of the screen. Inside here was a ton of different food components, some enchants, nautilus shells, other things that would be extremely useful. And nearby to that was another city with a waystone available with it that allowed me to get home for just a few levels. I have so much inventory management to do. It's not even funny. Day 49, with what I can only assume was a absolutely mind-blowing inventory management montage right before this. We're gonna keep it a little low key. I had all of the different foods that I got from the fisherman village, and I spoke with my guildmaster, which unlocked a whole bunch of new stuff, including the create items. Water wheel. we got create. We just unlocked create. We can make pasta. Jesse, it's time to cook. So in all of my celebration for wanting to unlock create, I didn't pay much attention. And you see this chest with all of this stuff in here? I broke the chest, not realizing it was still marked as a loot chest. So therefore everything was deleted. All right, that sets me back a bit. Thankfully, I had a few things in my inventory. So I moved the waystone outside and set up a very, very, very basic manually powered version of the millstone to mill wheat into flour. I then made a sink thinking, yes, this will be an infinite source of water. And it wasn't. My disappointment is immeasurable. So I went down to the side of the river with 1 bucket in my name and just converted all of this very slowly from flour into dough. I then chopped that dough up into noodles and set that to cook with some tomatoes for pasta sauces and different meats, which would allow me to make some very fulfilling meals, with a few golden apples as desserts or appetizers to round out my balanced diet. Day 50. We're doing more cooking, okay? I might be halfway through saving the world, but this is an RPG, and this is when we get distracted with a very specific minigame. I bone mealed tomatoes throughout most of the day, replanting a lot of them, and starting to kill a few of the cows to turn them into mincemeat, which I can then turn into burgers, which I can turn into spaghetti and meatballs. Yes, I get so excited, and this pack genuinely makes me quite hungry. I also cooked up a few of the patties to be able to turn them into burgers, seeing a wandering trader outside the back of my house at the very, very end of the day, who was offering me an Unbreaking 5 chest plate. That looked absolutely bonkers, but I was too busy making pies to actually grab it. I don't remember why I decided not to get it in the moment, But yeah, I passed up on that because I needed to make sweet berry pie. When I woke up the next morning, it's day 51 and we're hitting the midpoint of this adventure. And I desperately need to get better geared and better equipped for some of the challenges coming in the future. I spent some time combining the crossbows just to make something that was honestly pretty great, and looked over all of my gear and everything I had collected because we're going to take a huge challenge. We're going to go take on that pillager castle. I mean, we're 51 days in. At this point, I've learned a bit of the combat mechanics and I'm prepared for range. So let's try to take out a few evokers and get a few totems of undying. The first evoker I was able to corner in a room with a bunch of armor around them and just rush them, shooting with a few bow shots and then just rushing in with a sword combo, grabbing the totem and running outside immediately. That felt like a win. From there, I was back inside, just breaking all of the spawners, fighting any of the mobs that was coming around, and immediately got yeeted by a ravager that was standing inside here, breaking the first totem and resetting me back to 0. This is a massive structure with a ton of different areas, tons of spawners and evokers hidden inside the walls that I didn't even notice. And I don't even want to talk about the dinner party that's happening up on the top floor. That is a dinner party of murder. The only benefit of this is that all the evokers and pillagers and vindicators that are there are stuck on chairs, so they can't rush up and attack you directly. After collecting and breaking totem number 3 and having 4 and 5 sitting in my inventory, I'm generally positive about this thing, and it took a full 2 days worth of an encounter to just completely take this down. The last mob that I actually killed was one of the evokers that was hidden inside the wall with a ton of gold and emerald blocks and some amazing loot in the chests. The amount of emeralds I got from this, it was insanely profitable of an attack, but it also meant that my inventory was once again jumbled to all heck. Standing from the top of this tower overlooking this castle and looting what I could find on the tables, I found an hourglass and a bunch of different enchanted books that were just sitting here, both of which I grabbed for different quests or for my own benefit, and just ran back to the house, doing another 10 minutes of inventory management that I'm absolutely sure Sierra will show you every moment of it. And after that 2 days of relentless combat, I had exhausted basically all of my food and most of my gear was halfway damaged. So I spent day 53 repairing and cooking, making sure that I'd be able to, do the legendary scarfing down 3 cheese wheels in the middle of a battle to be able to survive an ogre attack. Trust me, that almost exactly happens a little bit later. But I culminated this day by making the paraglider, having the Breath of the Wild parallels be a little bit more on the nose. Honestly, I'm a little embarrassed that it took me this long to make this thing. It is super cheap and it is super useful. I mean, look at it. It cancels basically all fall damage. I can fly. It's amazing. So I headed back over to the village, grabbing all of the fertile soil out of a few of their buildings, which I can use to harvest crops better. Spoilers, I never do. And since I can't make my own anvil yet, I used the one in the middle of the scarecrow to actually finish repairing all of my gear. From there, I summoned my new horse, heading towards a new shrine, which was a puzzle. And, yeah. I'm normally recording for these videos at like midnight or 1 a.m. after I've worked my day job, spent time with my family, and sometimes streamed. Come check me out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm usually pretty stupid when these are going. And this puzzle broke my brain. I'm not gonna lie. It took me far too long to figure out how it worked. But eventually I unlocked it, grabbed the spirit orbs, and ran away with my tail between my legs. I do not want to talk about how long that took, and you better not make me look stupid in the edit. I do that bad enough to myself, okay? Okay. Day 55, with the map in hand, I'm still on horseback heading north trying to find the next boss area, so I know where I have to go. I did find a new inn that was actually relatively close to my house, which was populated by a ton of different wandering traders. There's a couple decent trades here, but the main thing I wanted was what I could grab out of the chests, including this amazing blue rolled chest piece, which was going to help me out a ton in future combat. Then I realized I should have checked the Yelp reviews first, as there were several villagers in a cage directly outside, being surrounded by pillagers, and I was almost murdered with an axe to the face. I'm not going to start a raid at this place. This is right next to my house, so I just kind of left them to deal with it. 1 star. Once my horse had taken me as far as they could go, I jumped in a boat and continued heading north. The rain and the ambiance of this pack just being absolutely exquisite. I was checking through chests on day 56 when I woke up and was told I'm now a bad guy? Hey, I've done nothing but good things for these villagers. Why they're choosing to hate me now, I have no idea. Yeah, it's not like I've taken anything of theirs or anything like I am the hero here, okay? I feel personally attacked. I continued heading north through the desert on the horse, which I had not yet named, finding my way to a large cliff and putting that paraglider to use. And oh my goodness, was that not both terrifying and extremely exhilarating to just gently float across the void. But combining all of these, I made my way to yet another village, and knowing that village reputation is global, I spent a little bit of effort and some emeralds, making up a few of bundled emeralds, which you can use to basically bribe your way back into everybody's good graces. You have to sleep though, so I threw another one in the morning for good measure, maybe that'll make them like me a little bit more, and continued north, learning absolutely nothing and looting the next POI that I could find. There were ghosts in this one, which I kicked, like Korg in that one Thor movie, and saw somebody who wrote a journal about how the Earth is a cube. I guess it's Minecraft, it tracks. But down in the basement, I realized that this place was probably hiding a bit of a dark secret, as there was a hoglin just waiting to attack. With that attempt on my life totally handled, I jumped back on No Name and continued heading north, finding a waystone just out in the middle of a field and grabbing that to take it with me. It would be extremely useful. The paraglider is the main way to go across canyons, and I can just summon the horse back to the other side with me, which is wonderful. Minecraft, please add this. I spoke with a single random villager standing out who offered me a blue journal, which it turns out I traded for it, is a gateway to yet another dimension in this mod pack. And I don't even get to touch it at all in this 100 Days movie. Maybe if we come back here for another chapter, but I'm just getting through the overworld right now. But I had found where I needed to go, so I dropped down the waystone, warped back home, dumped out all of my inventory, took a quick nap, teleported back, and it's time to fight the Nine Tails, which, if they weren't stuck inside a fence, would have probably been a lot more terrifying of a fight. Relying exclusively on my crossbow and staying away from whatever the heck is happening right there, I do not want them to grab me. And since 2/3 of my gear is giving me better speed, that is very easy to avoid. I snuck in between two of their attack patterns, a few quick sword slashes, and I had the next eye, one step closer towards the end of this game. Thankfully, the Guildmaster's next target for me was the Skeleton Overlord, and I actually knew where one of those was. I had passed them just a few days prior when I was out searching for that werewolf. But now I could enchant my gear on an enchanting table. So the first thing was to head home, and I have no idea what this UI is, but I did come up with some relatively good enchants, so I'm gonna roll with it. And despite knowing that I had passed by one of these Skeleton Overlords, the problem was all of these village names are, just like I've said before, just like something my friend Sean makes up. So they're pretty worthless to figure out where I actually need to go, and it took me several teleports before I realized I was close. The hardest part of this was going to be getting up onto that island while being under fire from whatever enemies might be waiting for me up there. Thankfully, the horse was able to get me in pretty quick before a lot of things spawned on the ground, and I had more than enough wood blocks to just do a very simple nerd pole all the way up. Once I was on the giant floating circle, the first thing I had to deal with was these ogre mages, which would set me on fire if I got a little bit too close. That was very dangerous. The second thing were the explosions that were constantly targeting at me, and the fact that I needed to mine through a fence to be able to take on the boss at all. And this is the first boss that I fought exclusively in third person, and running out of arrows about halfway through, needed to play a lot more close combat. Plus the boss's attack patterns and the different abilities that they had with the summon giant column of fire spell that they were casting on me pretty frequently. Honestly, this combat is what made Dawncraft click for me. I'd been kind of struggling with the different combat mechanics and the different combos. This felt like a proper boss fight, and it's something that genuinely I hope that one day we can experience something like this in a more vanilla version of the game, because when I slayed the Skeleton Overlord, oh boy did it feel good. Yes! Oh my god, that was so cool. Blighted meat The magical eye. Yo. That went so well. Once that was handled, I just threw myself off, and a combination of knowing that I'd land in water and taking advantage of that paraglider made the fall a little less scary. I headed back to the village, slept there, and on the morning of day 60, I was picking up a couple different quests. Just speaking with the villagers, who now seem to trust me a little bit more. Maybe the bribery actually worked. But I paid to learn how to use a fletching table, which actually has a purpose. You'll see that a little bit later, and wanted to take on this giant tower that was towering over the city. You know, like a tower would. How many times can I say tower in a sentence before my editor gets mad? Once I jumped inside, the mechanics of this is actually pretty interesting. It's a battle tower, which you might have seen in other mod packs as well. The gist of it is that you need to break the spawners on each floor to unlock the chests, where you could find 3 keys, which when you work your way all the way up to the very top of the tower, will allow you to unlock the boss to be able to take them on. The good news is that each individual floor is also amazingly well stocked with loot. The bad news is that I look like an absolute pincushion, and most of my armor is dang near broken from the sheer amount of damage I'm taking while taking this thing on. And yeah, the confined spaces definitely make the spawners work overtime. Into day 61, there were skeletons raining from the ceiling. I'm just grabbing whatever I can and trying to make sure that I'm not going to break my actual armor while I'm in here. And well, I didn't really succeed at the last of those. Oh my god. Whoo, that was so close. Oh, and I lost like 3/4 of my armor. Oh, that might not have been the smartest decision. I don't even know how far up I made it. There's got to be an eye on the top of that thing. But at this point, since there was no way I was taking on the battle tower in that little armor, I spoke with the guildmaster, who gave me my next target, a renowned holy knight that I would have to take on. That didn't seem ominous at all. But I thought, you know what? Maybe I can do this. I broke down all of the diamonds that I had and crafted it up into a brand new set of vanilla diamond armor. Now, the rolled RPG-like armor is definitely better for many things, but in just base defense, this would get the job done. I also made sure to break every window as I passed it, so I'd be able to jump out of any of them and use the paraglider to make sure I was gonna be safe. I'm trying to take all of this at as much range as I can. The acolytes with their poison bows are probably the most damaging and biggest risk enemy that I have to fight on here. But as I continued my way up the tower, a message popped in the corner. An undead army is about to attack this part of the world, and a bar started filling at the top of the screen. That's ominous. I quickly paraglided down to the village, thinking that I needed to save them, but nope. It was gone when I was over there. There was just a couple skeletons stuck in one of the farms. But when I went back to the tower, that's when the bar refilled. I'm thinking maybe this is some kind of localized raid, but I'm not 100% certain. It persisted all the way up to when I was at the very top of the tower. But that's not what I was gonna focus on. I slotted in the keys. It was time to take on the tower golem. Having just defeated the skeleton overlord, which had a much more varied attack pattern, the idea of slowly walks toward you to bonk you to death in the face felt like something that I could kite and relatively manage. Plus, I had accrued more than enough arrows, and my bow was pretty amazing. I was able to take this thing down between bow and blade relatively fast. But then the tower had one more surprise for me. What's happening? Without its energy, the tower will collapse. Oh! Oh my God. Oh, that almost blew me up. Yo, that looks so cool. Nice. Do I care about this undead army thing? I kind of don't. I kind of just want to get home. It has been far too long since we've been home. Taking on that tower was a fun distraction, but I'm almost at the 2/3 mark. I'm only about halfway through all of the eyes that I need to collect. And I just broke my best set of gear. So I'm going to have some grinding to do to get back up to speed. I worked home, banked all that I could, and it was time for a quick nap. Day 63. This is another one of those days where I just spent the whole day cooking, repairing armor, enchanting. This is probably on par with Vault Hunters for the most inventory management I've ever had to do. Maybe I should do another 100 days in that newer version, or I should really restart that series on my second channel. I don't know. We'll get to one of those relatively soon. But it's mostly admin and figuring out where this map actually leads, warping through all of the different waystones in the network to just be on different sides of the map to try to triangulate my location. Day 64. In one of those villages, I had a couple new villagers who were willing to give me quests, including things like trading in squid ink or trading in an iron knife, all stuff that was relatively cheap for me and relatively valuable for them, which unlocked a new trader for me, a butcher. One is immediately useful because I'm making better food, but it's nice to keep them in a little hole. After trading some more squid ink in with the cartographer, they leveled up my map making skills and allowed me to improve my sailing speed even further. But when talking about ships, I turned my eyes towards the sky ship directly above this village, climbing the ladder and taking on what was inside. Now, I've faced this one before. This is a bunch of kind of, I don't know how to put it, redstone zombies? Steampunk skeletons, something along those lines. And there's a bunch of spawners in the darker areas. The new combat mechanics of Dawncraft on top of that definitely made this a lot more interesting though, and I'm approaching the challenge of these individual rooms with a lot more caution, because despite having killed what I can only assume is gods, I'm still gonna get absolutely mauled to death by 3 small skeletons with very sharp axes. This definitely feels like D&D. Anything can kill you with the right rolls. Then I don't want to talk about these skeletons that happen to have the extra firepower. Get it? See what I did there? Yeah, those I take on the other side of a little head blocker wall. Blasting away with my crossbow, getting the enchanted books that are here, getting all of the redstone components, and a few golden apples and replacement rolled gear, which definitely would be useful. Paraglider helping me get down without too much of a risk. From there, I had another villager, which is asking me for squid ink, RIP to the local squid population, and I traded in enough paper to be able to learn a cartography trading agreement. This was massive. This was my first chance at different enchanted books in this entire mod pack. But I'm trying to take this one a lot more RPG route instead of doing the villager grind. So I did a couple quick little purchases, not being able to get them leveled up, and I'm not gonna break and remake the lectern. I'm gonna go with what they offer. I figure it's more true to the pack that way. But I continued along, looting a nether portal along the way and paragliding through the rivers. The picturesque landscape of this, the shaders, it's all so beautiful. So sleeping under the stars in a sleeping bag is just wonderful. I made my way into the Badlands, finding massive skeletal structures around here, and another town where it's bandits riding hoglins who drop grenades when they die. The mod combinations on this just are absolutely top notch. I broke a few of the spawners, finding some enchanted bows and rolled armor, which would definitely come in handy, and taking on a few of the enemies on the top, the sword is mightier than the bow. Once that was clear though, I continued swimming across the river and just continued heading along. Being able to run up block faces is just wonderful. I passed another one of those more Tuscan style villages that didn't have a waystone or anything else inside, going into day 67, where I'm running through the meadow and finding a single pillager just standing ominously in the field. And they hit pretty hard, half my health in a single blow. And the arrows that I was firing at them didn't seem to do much damage. I was gonna have to get in close, and that was gonna be a big risk. But while I was shooting and more focused on the enemy, I didn't pay attention to my crossbow, and it broke, and that was devastating for my overall combat ability. So I'm not proud of it. I absolutely legged it, heading into the city and then across an ocean, putting as much distance as possible between me and that pillager as I continued searching for the sentry knight. At this point, I was actually getting closer to my westernmost waystone, which was a little bit frustrating. I hadn't triangulated it properly, but the adventure that I had made across all of these biomes was pretty wonderful. I was just enjoying the natural beauty of this world with the mod pack. The bamboo jungle looked cool. cool. Honestly, the texture packs in this make Minecraft look very, very different. It's not what I'd normally play. But then an amazingly epic skeleton was here. I mean, look at this thing. I stood on its hand looking up at its face, and it is massive. I have no idea what this is for. I really hope it won't come alive and try to kill me, but it just leads to such an amazing question of the story of this world. What is this thing? That is so amazing. But from there, I continued along, making my way to a naturally spawning swamp village, which honestly is really cool. Love to see additional village structures like this. The problem was it was infested with some of the death keepers, I don't know what to call them, as well as the ogres, and the sentry night was just over the horizon. Look at how close we were on an existing thing. We went all the way up to here. No, we warped to here. And then we came down, and then we came across. When we were here, we were actually closer when we were here than when we were at here. Oh, that is so unfortunate. My own navigation skills aside, I was excited to finally be here. So I took a quick nap in the house going into day 60 nice, where we have a lot of fighting to do. The first thing was to craft a very rudimentary bow. I might not have my crossbow, but I definitely need to keep range, especially from the ogre, which was here. I peppered in a ton of shots, taking them down and unlocking an essence, which is another way to unlock additional spirit or hearts. I headed over the hill and saw the sentry knight in the distance. I paraglided in, just trying to keep my range, but that massive shield was gonna be a problem. And since I'm rocking an unenchanted bow, damage is minimal. So this took quite a long time of just kiting them around and just plinking them down with arrow after arrow. And just when I thought the fight was over, that's when the real boss music kicked in. Yes. What? Oh, wait. Knight Robert. Oh my God. Oh, don't have a third phase. Oh. I slayed Knight Robert for the second time, getting a rogue eye, and thinking that that was what I had been sent here for, started heading back. There was an alchemist's house just on a slightly different route back to the village, and a ton of potions and other things were inside, including a ton of pillagers. I looted a couple of the chests and realized I should probably come back here when it's light outside, so I ran back to the village, had a quick nap, and then headed back over on day 70, jumping in through the window instead of taking it from the front door, just so I could be smart here. This place is absolutely peppered with different create blocks, and I love the kind of Willy Wonka vibe I get from it. Sitting on one of the stools was an illusioner, and thinking that I just killed another rare pillager at one point, maybe they would have another eye to give me. So I spent the time just running around as they would teleport, make a bunch of clones, and then go invisible. So I had to be very careful about who I was fighting. The funny thing was, though, the mobs would naturally sit on any of the chairs that were around, so I found them trapped on a couch on more than one occasion as I was just stabbing them in the face and they could do nothing about it. Once they were eliminated, I took quite a bit of time looting all of the different chests that I could find here, finding things like efficiency books, unbreaking books, but the sacks themselves were pretty wonderful. What was outside of the door was absolutely the opposite of wonderful, though. Oh no, I hate it. Why does it have a tongue that has a tongue? Ugh. With my nightmare demon now apparently ported into the game, I spent the rest of day 70 just demolishing all of the create things I could find here to replace for that loot chest that I had destroyed and broken 20 some odd days ago. Day 71, I'm gonna run back to another known town which has a waystone in it, the swamp village didn't, to be able to warp back home. I found another battle tower and a lighthouse relatively close by with a chest with some golden apples and a treasure map of one kind that I would need to go check out at some point in the future. I activated this, synchronizing to the area, unlocking waypoint, which totally doesn't work, and I'm just making this as a joke, before paragliding into what I thought was another village. but instead it was populated exclusively by witches, and those potions would be very scary in my current state. As I was running through the woods, I got the Goblin Entanglement advancement, meaning that it was a spider dungeon, and if you watch The Purge 2, you know there's absolutely no way that I'm going there. I really hope there's no actual spider boss in this pack. That would be traumatizing. But I made my way back to another one of the villages that had a waystone, spoke with the guildmaster, who was still pointing me towards the sentry knight, which was a little bit confusing. I'm not sure why. I'd gotten the eye. At least I thought I did. I checked through all of the advancements, spoke with another, logged in, logged out, and then noticed that I already had the rogue eye. Something had gone horribly wrong, and I realized when I received a letter in the morning. Oh look, wandering trader support. The 2 items I was supposed to receive. The sentinel sword. Oh! It has a special ability. And then the sentinel knight's key. Thank you for the support.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
Oh! Stay right there. 45 emeralds, they say. Where are you? Get back here. Oh my God. Like, that's good. This is better. Genuinely, so much better than what I just got from a boss. Now that I had the items that glitched during the fight, I tried turning the key in, and that's not what I needed to do. So I warped back towards the closest village, spent the entire day running back over to the tree, and then got what I needed. Okay, so there we go. The Guardian Eye. Yes. Now we get to spend 3 levels to go home again. As I was on my way back, I found a huge apiary with a ton of different bees inside and some decent loot in a few of the chests. Again, I have no idea why the villagers don't like me. I'm totally only doing good things for them. I fought an enderman that was directly outside the front door, having to result to sitting in water because, yeah, these things are scary. And the wolf that tried to attack me, yeah, I absolutely got mauled by that thing, popping my totem where I had to grab another from a toolbox while underwater, taking it out with my new enchanted axe. This thing absolutely crits, but it is slow, so if I miss, it is especially punishing. The next day, once I had warped home, I configured both of my toolboxes for the things that I would need many of, but just didn't want to keep inside of a sack just for stack purposes. This way, I was able to keep things on brand and make my inventory management a little bit easier. I headed back over towards the Guildmaster, where now I received a new quest and a little thread of hair, being warned that this was the final challenge I would undertake and the biggest boss I would ever fight, which made me think it was time to do a little bit of research. I crafted up a spell tome, which would allow me to do different magical effects, turning me into a wizard and crossing the streams from my own medieval mod pack. The only problem was this spell pack is insanely complicated to learn, and when you stack like 9 harm onto it, it basically tickled this turtle right here, which good for them, but not as good for me. After doing a ton of research into how this would work, I will deal with this later. I'm just gonna stick with my sword and my crossbow. I am a simple man. I have 11 levels in fighter, and I'm just gonna rock it. The next day, I went riding out on my horse, just kind of looking for a fight. I'd spent several days doing inventory management and just putting things together. I wanted to kill things, and now I figured out how to crit with Bone Splitter, which meant I could one-shot most mobs. That is absolutely bonkers. I did give a pretty big distance to the legendary orc that I was fighting outside of this village, and my bow was the main way I was doing damage there, swimming across the river, one-shotting mobs throughout the whole night. Realistically, this is just, oh yeah, I learned how to crit on day 74. But genuinely, I'm saving up the experience to be able to do some enchanting now that I have that unlocked, so I can do a little bit more and have my gear be better off. I found a new village, grabbed its waystone, warped back home, and started investigating what I could do with a few of the different create things. All of that running took mainly the day, so I was out in the fields again when I was grabbed by whatever the heck this thing is, and the fact that it can slow you and freeze you is honestly terrifying when you combined with any other mob. I did a little bit of cooking throughout the rest of the night, and at this point I feel like I'm set for the rest of the playthrough. This bag is full. Day 76, I threw mending on my diamond boots, meaning that I could repair them with experience. So I headed outside to breed the pigs and... Oh! Okay, that was just uncalled for. Oh no, they've escaped. Okay, they've escaped. Okay, I don't want to admit that after I took care of all of the rest of the animals and rebuilt the fence, these pigs were probably the biggest challenge that I'd faced in maybe about 20 days, and getting them all in the pen, that took longer than I care to admit. But I spent a good chunk of the night using waystones and warping around just to try to triangulate the next boss and get myself a little bit closer. I ended up at this creepy looking village with a giant structure outside, which I proceeded to immediately ignore the next day, chopping down a whole bunch of spruce, finding a waystone out in the wild, and then finding some enemies in the world. Oh, what is that? What was that? That did not sound friendly. As I was running through the woods, I saw another one of those pillager castles with an enchanted pillager directly outside. It was axe versus axe, and I was able to take the win, and that's when I noticed something else sitting in the bushes. Oh! Oh, that's another spirit orb. Yes! Okay, now I'm gonna have to pay way more attention in the forests if there's just Koroks sitting around. I didn't know that that was a thing, but I continued running along, using the paraglider to cover a whole bunch of distance, seeing some whales, which was awesome. And the village that I came into had a ton of different traders here, including getting me the Hunter Trade Scroll, meaning that I can trade in mob drops for food and emeralds. That's a passive little bonus. I fought the pillagers that had a spawner right next to this waystone, took a quick nap, marked up that, and grabbed the diamonds from the lighthouse structure off in the distance before anybody saw me. From there, I realized, oh yeah, fletching tables have a use, and it turns out they can craft arrows at double the rate, which would come in handy. I sailed along doing some ice boating to cover distance a little bit faster, and running around, seeing another Night Robert, but that's not what I want to deal with right now. I made my way into the frozen areas, finding a boat of pirates, and I had a perfectly rational and completely normal response to their presence that is in no way against the Geneva Convention. Digging my way into the boat that had spontaneously caught fire, I found a few pieces of amazing armor, and believe me, I was gonna need it. I'm not sure if you noticed, that was half a heart. I almost died there. Oh my god. Beryl the Withered. You undoubtedly have an eye. There's no way you don't. The next day, now that most of the boat had burned, I positioned myself on one end of the floating husk of the ship and just bowed down the enemies before they could get close. The Wither skeleton made their way off the boat and were floating in the water underneath me, which was an extremely tricky situation to deal with. They dropped Maximalian armor, which I thought would be better than the random rolled iron armor that I had, but it turns out those extra perks are huge. So I'm gonna keep going with what I had. I was actually a little disappointed that they didn't drop an eye. Yeah, I would think like the black eye, something with pirates, but nope. Nothing here. I continued horsing and then running along, finding my way eventually to a giant black stone crater with a hand inside. Giant summon. Yep. This is the place. Now look, it's only day 79, and I know I am inevitably going to have to improve my gear and gear up for this final boss fight. So I threw down a waystone, warped home, and then did a ton of inventory management that you undoubtedly want to watch every moment of before going to bed. The next morning, to commemorate being 4/5 done with this video, I drank some drugs. Okay, let's see what these are. Oh, that's not good. Absorption 10. Oh, that would have been so good to keep for a later fight. With those named potions being a little bit stranger, it did make me think that maybe I should reevaluate all of the gear and items that I had collected. I did figure out a way to make a table which would allow me to socket gems into the empty sockets on some of my armor, which would give them pretty decent upgrades. I did that with a little bit of enchanting, making a fletching table and crafting additional arrows, and going into the night, breeding a lot of the mobs, finding out that I can't enchant the helmet for some reason. So that's a bit of a bummer. I fought mobs throughout the night for experience so I could do some base level enchantings on a new helmet that I would make, and harvested up a whole bunch of gravel for more arrows, going into day 81 where I enchanted and repaired my existing gear set. I'm in iron armor still. I am 4/5 through this video, and it, with its rolls, is some of the best stuff that I found, so I'm kind of rolling with it. I turned in the spirit orbs to upgrade my stamina wheel yet again, returning back to the house and clearing out more of a space directly behind the house, so I would have a nice little kind of open combat area that I didn't have to worry about falling into a tree. From there, I socketed an additional cold damage gem into my sword that was already doing cold damage, basically doubling its attack power, and took that out into the clear area behind my house using it and Bone Splitter to just mow down everything. The next morning, I'm realizing I need to upgrade my range capabilities. The bows I have are okay. The crossbow I have is definitely the best thing that I could get, but I need more. I used the millstone to break down all the gravel into flint without having to worry about RNG, which was awesome, and found a wandering trader outside who is selling a god tier pickaxe and some rice. I'll let you figure out which one I was more excited for.
Okay, I know. I know this might seem like the stupidest thing to be excited about, but I'm very excited about being able to plant rice. That's like the last food that I don't have. Grow, my pretty, grow.
After doing a little bit more manual grinding, I realized create is automatic. That's kind of the whole point of the mod. So I spent a little bit of time setting up an interior water wheel, a few gears, and flooding part of my house to try to get a very basic automatic millstone setup, which I was able to do in short order. Before it turned to daytime though, the rainy vibes was perfect for some moody, brooding combat out in the field. Day 83, I continued down through a crack which led me back to the dungeon that was relatively close to my house that I had honestly kind of forgotten about and don't think I had fully explored. There was a legendary vampire in here that paralyzed me and sucked out half of my blood before I was able to move again and quickly axe crit them down. And while I'm getting good in close quarter combat, range is where it's at, and I need feathers to craft more arrows. So I built a pen and went and grabbed a whole bunch of chickens on leads, slowly leading them back to home and starting breeding them up to be able to get a proper feather supply. Going into the night, I continued with fighting more mobs in the area, again just trying to get up to level 30 and getting even better with the combat experience, and I got a Wilden Horn. That feels like it's super important based off of the advancements, but I'm not sure what it does. What I'm sure it's not though is probably a fair trade for the helmet, which I broke at the end of the day. Day 84, I'm checking out all of the local POIs, looting the nearby orc camp that was right outside of the pillager castle, and I saw a ton of different pillager and witch variants out here. They look like they're carrying TNT and mini guns, and that witch is just slinging potions like they're in the MLB. I am giving them a wide berth and not going anywhere close to that. But heading over the hills directly to the west of my home was a house with a whole bunch of food on the top layer and a whole bunch of different bows in a barrel outside. While it was guarded by one of my sleep paralysis demons, my bone splitter axe now is able to do a decent bit of damage, but the ones that throw bones at you, those are actually kind of scary. They stun lock you, which could go very badly. But all of this was topped by a vanilla mob, and you know which one it is.
Oh, that's the worst. They made phantoms worse. They gave them a ranged attack? Oh, nope, nope. Oh, no. Nope, 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 nope.
The next morning, I'm looking over all of the different bows that I had collected and some basic enchants that I was able to put on them to get a power 3 unbreaking 2-1, and some of those stat rolls combine and stack as well, which is huge. This is a blue bow, but it's a pretty great one. I was doing a little bit more enchanting when somebody crashed my house.
Oh, jeez. Really? Inside my house? Not cool. Oh, that is really good, though. Oh, it takes Phantom Membrane, though. Oh.
Thankfully, they had something I needed, so I traded it for one of the POI maps, which could lead me to a new dungeon or area that I would explore. Taking a quick nap while they were still in the house, I didn't wait to say goodbye because the next morning, knowing where the final boss of the main quest is, I have this urge to round out and fill out some of the other enemies that I had seen along my journey. And the first one should be the Sun Chief that I saw all the way back on day 3 in this world. If I grab their mask, I could then summon a bunch of their minions to fight for me. And that feels like a great thing to have going into a final boss. I rode on my horse, passing by a giant horse statue that had some bones inside, before making my way over to the savannah just as the sun was falling, thinking that maybe that means that this enemy would be weaker, but no. Giant beams of Screw You in particular fell from the sky, setting me on fire, with their minions constantly healing them, meaning I would have to get in close and burst damage. This was not a sustained battle. But it gets even trickier, because you can't get in directly close because they belly bounce you away. So you have to sit in this perfect mid spot where you're afraid you're not going to get yeeted from the sun, and you can constantly damage the boss. If that was the only thing I was dealing with, that would be okay, but the giant werewolves that were coming to attack me definitely complicated things. Once the wolf was gone and I eliminated all of the healers, I was able to bow down Barocca from just out front, and I expanded my kingdom.
The king in the south, anyone? But now I have like, oh, okay, we're gonna do some fun stuff with these masks. We're gonna have a little army.
This village had one final surprise for me, as the first of the chests grew teeth and tried to munch my face off. With that done, the next day, I found another one of these small little lumber camps that had another toolbox inside, and these are honestly a great find for inventory management. Continuing to run my way along, and now feeling that I could take on the Death Carriers. Plague Doctors? I don't know what they're called, but they're spooky as heck. But I fought a lot of them in close combat. One of them dropped a scythe, and that thing is so cool. But I'm not taking on all of these enemies randomly. I have a very specific target in mind. Approaching from a slightly different angle, I found a savannah village with a waystone and a bed that I could sleep in, and the next morning it was time to take on the casino.
Oh my god. Maybe let's start at the bottom.
Woo!
Okay.
Yeah, this place takes the house always wins just a little bit too far, and it's more along the lines of the house will murder you if you attempt to enter. The pillagers with the rocket-firing crossbows honestly is the definition of shock and awe, and it had me panicking. I'm just hiding around a corner underneath a bridge with only 2 hearts, hoping none of them notice me, because if they do, that's another totem gone, and well, that was a totem gone. Plus, my quiver is automatically picking up the rockets, meaning my crossbow is firing explosives when I'm not prepared for it to. After clearing the first wave of the enemies, I'm trying to punch my way through the wall with the extended reach pickaxe to break the spawners on the other side. I got a few of them, but realized this was a losing battle. I was only 2 floors up, I was out of totems, and it wasn't gonna go well. So I headed back to the village, and wouldn't you know it, there was a zombie attack as soon as I got there. I spent quite a bit of time just trying to take out all the enemies at range, because even a mid-level mob can just 3-hit combo me if I'm not careful right now. Took a quick nap, and the following morning decided, yeah, you know what, this village can kind of fend for itself. I'm on a new mission now. Before I take on the final boss, I need a couple totems, because there is undoubtedly a 1-hit kill move or 3 that is going to try on me. I warped to where I remembered seeing a pillager castle, thinking that if I can go in there, be careful, be smart, I can come out totem positive. This scythe is awesome for taking down the rat mobs or the plague doctors themselves, the combo potential being awesome. I did find a very weird stone house that had a king standing inside. This is probably an NPC for another quest that I haven't unlocked yet, but the invisible spiders, yeah, that feels like a bit of a bad omen. I marked that house before finding a nearby village, using a fleshing table to make myself a whole bunch more arrows, took a quick nap, and took on the pillager castle the following day. I'm armed with knowledge here, which I didn't have the first time around, meaning I know where there's evokers hidden inside of the walls, and I have a rough idea of where all the spawners are located. So I'm methodically clearing each area, grabbing all of the sacks for additional ability to loot this place, and digging into that wall immediately to take out the first evoker, grab a totem, and all of the treasures waiting inside. From there, I'm just bum rushing each of the individual rooms, remembering that there's a Ravager and being prepared to bow it down before it can cross the hall to get me, and going into the library area, knowing that the evokers will turn on shields that will make them immune to bows, so I have to go in and crit them with Bone Splitter before they have time to summon more Vexes. One of them dropped the Conch of Summoning, and I now have evoker powers. That was so cool. Using that and just constantly popping into and out of the door, I was able to trap and kind of party crash the dinner on the very top floor, looting all of the different foods and potions and the glass bottles of experience, and going to the very top of the tower, which I didn't in the first one, finding a whole bunch of decently rolled armor. But it was one room on the very bottom that I didn't even know was here, which really blew my mind.
Oh my god. I'm rich. Very, very, very rich. That means that this is here in the other tower.
I'm gonna have to go back if I happen to do 200 days in this world and loot that from the first pillager castle. But my first priority right now was to get back to the village and sleep. There be monsters here. The next day I jumped in my boat and started sailing and then running back home. There's no waystone right here, so I had to get to another village that had one. I warped back to the house proper, and there's, well, you know what's coming next.
Hello and welcome to today's loot box opening video. I'm not gonna make you watch me organize my inventory again. So, quick magic cut. We're done. So we have a bunch of food. I need to do some cooking still. Over probably 7 stacks of emeralds, 12 diamonds, almost a full thing, all the gold, 4 totems. We have the Conch of Conjuring, which we're gonna use. We have our mask and all of the masks that we're gonna be able to summon, all of our trade agreements, and that is basically everything. I'm trying to organize my inventory a little bit better.
Since inventory has been such a key feature of this mod pack, I invested a set of gold and then diamond into massively upgrading my backpack storage capabilities. With that and sacks, I can hold dozens upon dozens of things now. Day 93, and I lied to you on day 74 because there is at least one more cooking montage day in this world. I investigated how to cook with chocolate before clearing out all the mobs in front of my house, growing all the rice with bone meal, using that and making pasta and noodles and some different fried rice dishes, breeding up and slaughtering about half of the cows to turn them into more mincemeat, and making a few sweet berry pies to be able to have the speed boost that comes from the light snacks. I checked all of the maps that I had. I want to kill the fire giant right at the end of this adventure, so I'm trying to see if there's something else that I can sneak in a little bit sooner. The next day, by chance, I saw a warp stone as a crafting recipe, so I invested all of the ender pearls that I had and a little bit of purple dye, which will allow me to warp to the different waystones without a level cost. The only downside is that it has a 5-minute cooldown. Realistically speaking though, with my travel, that kind of works. But one of the maps that I had was a buried treasure map that looks like it was actually relatively close to my house, so I continued running down the coastline, finding a whole bunch of chickens, which I slaughtered for feathers, and then 2 different POI that seemed to generate over each other, which caused a bit of a jumbled mess, but an interesting combination of plague doctors stuck in the basement. What I can only contemplate is half of a hotel. Maybe this is meant to be kind of like the Shining Hotel. I don't know. I continued running along the beach until I found the treasure chest, grabbing the Heart of the Sea, a whole bunch of gold, and a few other potions. I continued south, finding a village just a little bit further, and another one of what I can only call now a hunter's cabin, with all of the bows outside and the food in the attic, meaning that I had a whole bunch more stock and inventory and ammunition for my final battle. As I continued along that path on day 95, I was attacked by a few minions from another Sun King that was probably somewhere nearby, killing them to get a few additional masks which would be built into my army. There's an orc camp here as well, with a legendary and an epic level orc, and these things hit like a truck. Going from full health to 1, that's kind of bonkers. So I defaulted back to using the crossbow, getting them stuck in water, and just relying on range and not being able to be set on fire. I did once or twice venture just a little bit too close, but patience was a virtue, and I slayed them, getting some decent stuff. With the main threats clear, I spent the rest of the night just asking everybody else questions, looting a few of the chests that I saw, and once the nightmare monsters spawned, decided, nope, this is not fully worth it, warping home, dumping out all of my inventory, and throwing a gem on my helmet to make myself even faster. The next morning, I enchanted the helmet, and it was time to put it to the test.
My name is Legundo, and I'm the fastest Minecrafter alive. Look at my ups. It's ridiculous.
Okay, I'm going full monk at this point, not a fighter. I might not have a high AC, I might not have high hit points, but I am dang hard to hit if I'm constantly running around them. I spent a little bit of time upgrading my quiver twice to triple my overall arrow capacity, and found a few different potions which would probably be useful. I brewed up a few fire resistance potions at the brewing stand, the only time I used it so far in this world, thinking it's a fire giant, so fire resistance is probably a good idea. But at that point, I'm using all of my experience, all of my bottles of XP to fully enchant and repair my armor. I'm going into this thing prepared. In the morning of day 98, it was time to do it. So I warped over towards the giant crater, threw on the mask, summoned my horde of minions, threw down a fire resistance potion, headed to the center, threw in the knot, and summoned the boss. No, my friends. I got him. What does he do? Oh, we have to go use that on something. With the fire giant slain, capitalism took exactly 3 seconds to make its way to the area, seeing a wandering trader that traded emeralds for diamonds. Yeah, I had some game there. I warped back towards the closest village, flew over towards the guildmaster, and turned in my final quest. Well, I'm speechless. This is it, adventurer. You have defeated the eye holders. You have acquired 12 eyes already. Look for the gateway to the end. Godspeed to you. Oh, they gave me another knot. I can fight the giant again. With my main challenge now complete, I threw some emeralds in for a little bit extra bribery, and then headed over towards the casino. At this point, I was feeling invincible, so let's take on the ultimate enemy, which is capitalism itself, as the final boss. Okay, I take it back. I'm not taking on the casino. Nope. Nope. Okay, I lied. Let's not take on capitalism. So instead, I warped home thinking, let's take on a single pillager standing out in the field. That might make for a slightly less anticlimactic, but decent fight. I ran north, passing by all of the different POI that I had found, eventually coming across a pillager camp, thinking that if it's the last thing that I do, ridding the world of a clan of bandits that would go around pillaging and robbing, this feels like a gracious final act. I spent a little bit of time taking out most of the pillagers that had spawned around here, but didn't seem to be making a ton of progress. So I slept underneath the stars for potentially the final time, continuing north to the abandoned village that I had found before, and getting to the clearing where that pillager had been standing. They were gone. At this point, I killed giants, gods, primordial knights, centuries and legends, myths and ghosts. Maybe they got the hint and realized they weren't ready to fight me. So I warped home, doing one last little bit of inventory organizing, setting out some wheat for my mobs, and finally building a bridge over that little gap towards the little tender of land at the very beginning. I thought back to about the halfway point of this adventure, where when I got a whole bunch of obsidian, the game warned me that this was the next step, the next chapter, and would level up all of my opponents. So I built a nether portal, cleared out the area, made a few little bit of breakfast, took a quick nap, and the next morning, I moved on to my next adventure. Here we go. Let's do this. And where I spawned? You're just gonna have to wait and find out.